This week on Arizona Illustrated, the conclusion of our series on mobile homes asks, what's next for residents of one of the last forms of affordable housing?
Mobile home parks are getting lots of investment, but they're not necessarily getting the right type of investment. So we need to find ways to invest in this vital source of affordable housing.
Learn how new border wall construction might affect wildlife in the San Rafael Valley.
The Nature Conservancy called this the last shortgrass prairie in Arizona, and it's been farmed for maybe 100 years.
And go behind the scenes of a classic Arizona oddity.
Nobody would even think about doing something like that in Arizona where it's so hot.
Hi, and welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. First up, for decades, mobile and manufactured home parks have provided stability for working families and retirees and those who've established community here in southern Arizona. Now, in the final part of our series, Mobile Homes, the Last Affordable Housing, we look at what's at stake and what's possible for mobile home residents. But as new investors buy up parks and raise rents, residents are organizing to protect those neighborhoods, from grassroots advocates to park managers who believe in doing right by their tenants. It's a story about resilience, reform, and restoring hope.
For seniors on fixed incomes, working families that have called Tucson home for generations, and those just settling into their desert life, mobile homes remain Arizona's most affordable housing. When mobile home parks become unlivable, it's not just residents who lose. It's an entire ecosystem of housing at risk.
We have in the United States the American dream of home ownership, right? And we have a whole system of financial supports to basically subsidize home ownership. But manufactured housing has been kind of left out. For folks who have low incomes, housing is a real challenge in Tucson, despite housing prices perhaps being lower overall in the city. The percent of people in the bottom 20% of the income distribution that are housing cost burdened is higher in Tucson than it is in Phoenix. It's higher than the state average, and it's higher than the national average.
Affordable housing isn't just the unit itself, it's the ability to pay for all of the infrastructure that maintain and have that space actually be a livable environment.
What's happening now didn't come out of nowhere. Experts say the system was built in a way that treated these homes differently from the start. And ongoing gaps in how the landlord-tenant act is enforced mean residents are still paying the price.
This was a housing type that was not treated as housing, it was treated as a form of vehicle, actually. And so you just paid like a vehicle registration tax. So there was no property taxes associated with this. And so it was very cheap, right, from that perspective. But it also brought all of the quote unquote burdens of housing, right, which is people who need roads, who need schools, who need all kinds of services. And so sometimes municipalities came to see this type of housing that as not paying its own way and being a burden. And so there was often this effort to sort of push it to the margins, to push it out of its borders so that they would not be responsible for providing services to this rapidly growing population.
It breaks my heart. They're just buying them, and they know we're sitting ducks, that it costs too much to move them, and we're gonna stay here regardless until you finally take our whole paycheck, and we have no money left.
Manufactured housing parks are a sweetheart investment. Oftentimes they're seen as being a relatively low investment way to produce returns. Because essentially what you do is you can be a landlord without being responsible for all of the upkeep of the home, right? You're actually not responsible for the condition of the home at all. There's many ways in which it's seen as a much more passive form of commercial real estate ownership.
There are still parks that are owned by individuals and by families who have been long-term in relationship with the residents, who are not jacking up the rent every month, we don't hear from them very often. And they're not the ones who call. The ones who call are the ones who are saying, like, how can I extract the most amount of money from these residents?
There are more than 600 mobile home parks in Pima County. Some are large corporate owners like Skyline Real Estate, which manages more than 60 parks across the country. At least 25 of those are in Arizona, where management says residents benefit from a professional long-term owner that reinvests into the park. Others are mom-and-pop shops with 30-some mobile home spaces, like the one run by park owner Al Velez. Resident experiences differ from park to park, but without stronger accountability, those residents have no assurances of stable rents or fair resolution of disputes.
I bought the place broken down about 8 years ago.
What was the state of the park?
It was broken down. Out of 36 units, only 6 units were rented. The rest were broken windows, broken doors, needed something. People don't want to hire me because I'm in a wheelchair. This gives me a job to do. This gives me responsibility. This gives me respect. I take payments, I work with people, I give people an opportunity. Anita! She's one of my longest tenants. Yeah, you can come on. My tenants pay me rent, and I need the unit to work for what they're paying me. You know, they need to get what they're paying for.
I started out in one of the smaller campers down there, and I was just moving forward, and he's like, go check that one out. You know, like, we're a community here, you know, this is our home, and we're always looking out for, like, I got family down here.
For me, I need to make sure that my tenants are comfortable. It's a business relationship, you know, they're paying me for something, and I'm giving them something. So any issues that they have with their unit, you know, I try to fix.
Organizers are thinking big about what needs to change to make manufactured home parks stable and bustling communities. They want a regulatory agency that deals specifically with mobile homes, for master meter parks to be converted to direct utility customers, and a pathway for more resident-owned communities.
We need real systemic change. So we work with residents and also with policymakers, with city and county staff, with the Department of Public Health. We come together to try to work on tangible solutions to some of the issues that people are facing.
De lo que tengo claro, el problema no es de la comunidad, el problema es sistemático. Las condiciones de vivienda son caras, la despensa, la luz, la renta, todo es caro, el salario sigue siendo bajo y la renta sigue subiendo. Entonces esa desproporción entre una cosa y la otra es lo que te lleva al desalojo. No porque la persona no tenga la capacidad o no pueda costear vivienda, la vivienda está fuera de nuestro alcance.
Mobile home parks are getting lots of investment, but they're not necessarily getting the right type of investment that is actually improving the housing. So we need to find ways to invest in this vital source of affordable housing where the return comes in the form of something other than profits or increased rents.
We want there to be more resident-owned communities, more nonprofit-owned communities, more communities that are owned by community land trusts, where really the long-term health and housing is the center, not some private equity firm making a bunch of money.
In mobile home parks across Pima County, the troubling patterns of predatory management, crumbling infrastructure, and residents fighting to stay are coming up against a new future, one where residents, advocates, and officials are rethinking what housing can look like for Southern Arizona communities.
These parks are beautiful places to live if the management agrees and wants to be there. For 40 years, we had great relations with our managers and a great place to live.
This is a vital source of affordable housing, right? If we're concerned about homelessness and housing inadequacy, then this is where we need to focus attention.
When it's done without such an extractive process, it can be quite affordable And not just affordable, but a place where people are checking in on their neighbors. A place where you can have multi-generations living next door to one another and supporting one another in really vibrant and thriving communities.
You can't stay quiet and suffer and you're paying your bills. I think that's the main, speaking out for your community. I remodeled my whole trailer to the way I liked it. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, I want to sell it or, leave, because I actually fixed it the way I wanted. All the schools are really close and my mom's really close.
I love the community atmosphere. I have a beautiful garden and patio. I put about $40,000 renovating the bathrooms. My mom's right there. I really enjoy living here.
My dream is to have a house out in the country. I just gotta try to get my dreams of having my little garden, my home, where nobody can throw me off of it, because it's ours, we own it.
Yes, we need to build new affordable housing, but we also need to preserve the affordable housing that we have. And I don't think we can take for granted that if we don't start making investments in this housing, that it will always be there.
At my age, I'm still trying to fight in life and still trying to do that. I may live in this, but it's something. I have to settle for what I have and then go down the line and get my dream.
Across Tucson and southern Arizona, mobile home residents are standing up not just for their homes, but for their right to live with dignity and security. Their fight is about more than housing. It's about preserving one of the last affordable options left and reimagining what a fair and sustainable future for Arizona families can look like. For more on the project and to learn more about housing advocacy in our state, visit azpm.org and arizonaluminaria.org. You can also find the entire series as a standalone documentary on our YouTube page. Last week, we took you to the San Bernardino National Wildlife Refuge to see how border wall construction is affecting an ancient spring system there. Well, now AZPM's Danyelle Khmara takes us to the San Rafael Valley to look at construction that's sparking similar concerns along one of the last unwalled ecosystems along that Arizona border with Mexico.
Mousetrap Pickin has spent the last several decades in the Arizona borderlands, working to restore habitat for wildlife that move between the United States and Mexico. In that time, he's documented how new border wall cuts off wildlife pathways and affects local water tables. New border wall, such as the construction taking place in the San Rafael Valley and the headwaters of the Santa Cruz River.
So we are right in the center of the San Rafael Valley. And this road will ultimately take us down to the US-Mexico border. And we are paralleling the Santa Cruz River. It starts in the United States, in Arizona, and it flows from north to south, and it enters Sonora, where it crosses near the former town of Loquillo. There's just a few houses there now. And it spends about 20 miles down south of the border, makes a U-turn, and then it recrosses the border east of Nogales. near a place called Keno Springs. And then ultimately the Santa Cruz River flows past Tucson and into the Gila, and then that finally empties into the Colorado River. These grasslands are blue grama grasslands, cane beard grass. These are all grasses that are native to the Great Plains. Pronghorn, antelope, and prairie dogs, all of that is here. This entire basin we're in the San Rafael Valley, ultimately feeds the flow for the Santa Cruz River. This is the beginning of the construction process, and they're setting up the logistics and the structure for building the border wall.
Can you just start by telling us where we are and what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, we're here at the Santa Cruz River. This is a very crucial wildlife migration corridor in what we call the Sky Islands region. And the Sky Islands being these mountains that rise above these valleys of grass. A good majority of the Sky Islands have been walled off. And this is one of the last remaining wildlife corridors. You ask yourself, why are they coming here? Well, it's water.
Is this a region where people hunt at all?
This is a very well-known hunting area. And there's 2 species of deer here, mule deer and white-tailed deer. So this has been prized by, sportsmen for a long time. Border walls will ultimately fragment populations, and the most likely scenario is that we're going to see a reduction in abundance and diversity of wildlife.
How close is the border construction that's happening right now?
I think it's around 5 to 7 miles to the east of us. They're staging right in the very center of the valley.
And they're planning on coming in this direction?
Both directions. They're going to work east and west.
And do you know the distance that they're planning on going on either side?
It's a total of 27 miles across the valley.
And do we have any data on what that impact will be? Do we have any idea what it might look like?
Because of the Real ID Act of 2005, the Secretary of Homeland Security can waive all laws for the construction of border barriers. And this means the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Endangered Species, Native American Graves Protection Act, eagles, everything. We're undertaking these projects without any means of knowing what kind of impacts we're going to make, on our environment.
And can you just say a little bit more about why border walls take so much water?
When they build these walls, which now are 30 feet tall, they have to put a concrete footer in the ground. And usually that's about 6 feet deep and about 3 feet wide. So in order to make that concrete, they need to drill wells. So they are drilling a couple wells east of here. And if what happened at the San Bernardino National Wildlife Refuge and the San Bernardino Valley is any indicator, they were pulling out on the order of 700,000 gallons per day. Multiply that times 900 days of this contract, and that's a phenomenal amount of water.
We're over the Santa Cruz River right now. And at this spot, there's a very small flow of water. You can't hear the water, it's trees that we're hearing. But this is what's left of the stream flow in the river.
Ross Humphreys is a conservationist and cattle rancher raising Angus beef south of Patagonia. In Arizona's high desert country bordering Mexico, his property is the north end of a rich ecological site that is home to many plants and animals on the endangered species list.
And here's a brag. In 2021, we were chosen as the Certified Angus Beef Producer of the Year nationwide.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that's what I said. Well, how did you do that? I'm in the middle of nowhere. The Nature Conservancy called this the last shortgrass prairie in Arizona. And it's been farmed for maybe 100 years. There are quinces, pear trees, apple trees, and black raspberry. And the Smithsonian's working all around the country looking at endangered plants, orchids in particular. And the Desert Botanical Gardens collected plants, seeds, and fluorescence here the first year I was out with them.
Can we get to see the orchids from here?
We need to walk out into there.
Should we do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm going to keep you out of the deep water.
Okay, good.
In the middle, we have a soil moisture sensor and a satellite transmitter that sends the soil moisture data to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
So how rare is this orchid?
It's unique to this site and one other in this county.
I see it's growing here in this really marshy area.
This is a cienega. It's been here for a bazillion years, and the water has flowed the whole time we've been here and supports lots of plants, lots of animals. Cattle have been grazing here since the 1800s at least.
Sounds like there's a whole ecosystem here that's unique to this region.
For sure.
And how close are we right now to the border?
We are about 2 miles from Mexico right now.
How do you think this new border wall construction will be felt in this region?
My concern is water. You know, the political question is somebody else's question. I'm not in that game.
Yeah.
My concern is the water. If it dries, you could lose the orchid, you could lose the Mexican green garter snake, you could lose Huachuca spring snail, you could lose a bunch of other goodies.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, our neighbors have already had their wells go dry. We have one neighbor with 3 wells, 2 of which are dry at his house.
And that's just like been recent?
This summer. Yeah, and he's 1,500 feet from the border.
So it was running dry before they started the border wall
We've had
construction.
3 years of a long drought, and 2 of his wells went dry.
Is he concerned with the construction?
Of course.
Yeah.
At the San Bernardino National Wildlife Refuge in Paquito Springs, they pumped the water that got pumped to make concrete, pumped those properties dry. This spring can go dry, and you don't know till you did.
What struck me, and I've seen a lot of border wall construction, and is when I looked to the south in Mexico, I saw Sierra Azul. And I know that there are jaguars there, and that's the northernmost breeding population of ocelots. And now I'm also looking at some locations in the Huachucas where I know jaguars have been photographed and ocelots. And it's been the first time that I've stood in one location and actually been able to see the connectivity diminish. I can see it all in one space. It's like I can literally see a mountain peak and a valley on both sides, and the start of a border wall that's going to cut those animals off.
If you've ever driven along I-10 toward Phoenix, then you have passed or maybe even stopped at a curious little location called the Rooster Cogburn Ostrich Ranch. Well, next, we show you how this 3-generation family-owned business has become much more than an ostrich ranch.
You know what this place really is about is a place for families to come, all ages. It doesn't matter if you're 2 or 102. It's fun for everybody. And they get to come in here, they get to forget their troubles for a little bit of time, they get to enjoy family with no electronics. You see someone come in and they got a on their face and they come out and they're like, that was the best thing ever. That's what it's all about.
It's the darndest place you'll ever see. It's on all our shirts and all the different things we have because you've never seen anything like this place. That's probably the one word I would say. It's the darndest place you'll ever see.
My name's Danyelle Khmara. I'm with Rooster Cogburn Ostrich Ranch. This is a family-owned and operated working ranch. There's actually 3 generations here. It's my mom and dad. That would be Rooster and Lucille, myself and my husband Craig, and then we have 2 boys, Tyler and Tanner, and they're the next generation. So we all live right here on the ranch and work it every day. We have got 15 different types of animals. We got the fallow deer from England. Ostriches are from South Africa. We got boar goats, they're also from South Africa. Chickens, we've got bunnies, got Nigerian dwarf goats. We have our St. Croix sheep. And then we have our rainbow lorikeets, which is everybody's favorite thing. And they're from Australia. One of our latest exhibits was the stingrays. And then our big giant tortoises.
Their first reaction is like, wow, oh my gosh, and it's, when they get on the truck especially, they're like, I can't believe I've not been here or done this. I can't believe this is here. So their first time coming is kind of an amazement. It's kind of a cool thing.
We actually started out in the ostrich business back in Oklahoma. Back in 1993, as we were getting bigger in the business, we decided we either had to get out of Oklahoma or we had to get out of ostriches. So we loaded up and came to sunny Arizona because this is very much the natural climate for the ostriches. They like the hot, dry, arid climate. And Arizona's perfect. And that is exactly why we're at this beautiful location right here below Picacho Peak in the background.
Her dad and herself put something together that nobody would say, hey, I'm just going to do ostriches in the desert. They researched this for many years from Oklahoma, and all the things I've learned about it, I was like, nobody would even think about doing something like that in Arizona where it's so hot. Every time someone comes, it's a new adventure. Every time I come to the trucks, it's not the same. Everybody says, oh, well, you've been. No, it's always different.
You got that wrong. It tastes like beef.
Back in Oklahoma, we got into ostrich farming because there's three main products, the meat, the hide, and the feathers. There is so much potential for ostrich antibodies. There's so many things that they can do with it. There's been stuff for COVID, stuff for flu. We've talked to the Mayo Clinic, the U of A, the Flynn Foundation. They got a new research facility in Phoenix that they're trying to build up. And, hopefully there can be some opportunities there, but there's tremendous opportunity with ostrich antibodies. So I have people in there saying, I've passed this place 100 times. And I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not even going to come kick you because after you do it, you're going to kick yourself. It took you so long to stop. And without a doubt, every time they come out, they're like, you are so right. I will not drive by ever again.
Now, we know we have a smart and curious audience, and we'd like to know what oddities you'd like to see on our show. You probably know of some that we've never even heard of. So feel free to send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or X. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. We'll see you again soon. Hi, I'm Tom McNamara, host of Arizona Illustrated. Thank you for watching this entire episode of our show here on YouTube. And if you liked it, well, here's another episode that we think you'll like.